Hello and welcome to the Duluth News Tribune's Bulldog Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat reporter at the News Tribune. We're mixing things up on the podcast feed this week a little bit after not really giving you a real episode last week when it was just Zach and I. We're going to try and get 2 episodes out this week because we have a lot going on, thankfully, in Bulldog hockey. The main event this week, we weren't sure if it was going to happen or not until Penn State held off Mercyhurst for the Atlantic Hockey America title on Saturday. Joining us from the NCAA Tournament bound UMD women's hockey team, it's Ashley Messier. Thanks for joining me, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So the Bulldogs are heading back to the NCAA tournament for the 6th season in a row. They open up the tournament Thursday against the Yale Bulldogs. That's not going to be confusing at all week. They get to return to the charming confines of the OSU ice rink in Columbus, Ohio. The winner will advance to play the Ohio State Buckeyes on Saturday. Both puck drops are 5 p.m. in Duluth. The Frozen Four, that's back at Penn State next week. Ashley, you and I talked on Sunday after the selection show about what it was like watching all those games that UMD had to sit through and hope they went their way. We broke them down in the podcast last week. I know it was stressful, but the team seemed really confident in talking to everyone on Sunday and in watching your captain zip around the ice on Friday on a Zamboni. If anyone caught that, yes, that was Mary Kate O'Brien on a Zamboni. If you were sitting there wondering who is that person looks familiar. I'm wondering, how confident were you guys throughout that week of practice that the season is not over?
You know what? I think what's misunderstood about that, we seemed very confident. And I think it's because that was the only mindset to have. That was all we could do. We showed up for practice last week and we had a quick conversation before we went on the ice. And we were just like, you know what, we can address the elephant in the room that especially as a first year player or even a sophomore, it's weird to show up to the rink ready for a hard week of practice, ready to go playing for a national championship when you don't even know if you're still there. And I think that the only chance you can give yourself is to not put your mindset as in, well, let's just see what happens on Sunday. This might be for nothing. We didn't have time for that. So I think the confidence was just, let's just pretend. Let's just pretend that we know that we are going to the tournament and we don't need to show up on Sunday and be like, oh, wow, we're in, and then turn it on. That's not how it works. We had to be dialed in and ready to go. And that's why we seemed so confident on Sundays, because we acted as if that's what was going to happen, whether or not we didn't really toy with the possibility that it wouldn't. So
one thing that didn't click on me till later, one of the teams you had to root against last week was your former team. You had to root against some of your former teammates. Was that awkward at all?
You know what? It's I obviously I love that place. I love that program, love my teammates and the coaching staff. I play for the UMD Bulldogs right now, and it wasn't awkward. They wouldn't expect me to feel any other way. And it's actually funny that you bring that up, because after that game, and I hadn't really spoke to many of the girls throughout the week from Cornell, I guess I should say, but I got a text from 3 of my freshmen when I was a senior there, and they just said, we just wanted to collectively, come together and say you're welcome for another chance in your college hockey career. and I thought that was they were being nice. It was sweet, wishing us luck and whatnot. But yeah, it was definitely it's a weird spot. It's not as weird as it would have been having to play that team. I'm grateful that didn't happen, but it's kind of like how it felt last year when I knew I was transferring to Duluth right early in the fall, and then turns out we play each other in the regional final. So it's hockey and it happens, and there's no bad blood or weird feelings about it. It is what it is.
That's all of them in code saying the next time you're in Ithaca, you owe us all a beverage for falling in that one. You mentioned now you're a Bulldog after being at Cornell. Now that you've been at a Bulldog for a full season, does any part of you feel a little bad for knocking UMD out of the tournament last year?
It's more just, now that I'm here and I know the girls and love the girls and my team, it leaves you with that feeling of like knowing the other side of it and hearing them talk about like certain stories from last year and they're like, oh, this time when we were at Cornell and like it'll come up and I feel like they almost sometimes forget that I'm on the other side of that or like they talk about last year in the tournament and like I'm on the other side of it and it's just a really interesting perspective but obviously like whatever team you're on like I think there's something wrong with you as an athlete and a competitor if you don't want your team to win. The team that you're currently a part of like that's your family. That's the team that you need to root for and want to win with. Otherwise, why are you doing this? So I don't think it's sports. It happens in professional sports all the time. You get traded and it's not like you feel bad for your team that you were on. Like that's how the cards went. Like that's just kind of how it goes. So um I know what it feels like to lose big games too. It's the same for everyone, regardless of what side you're on. So I empathize with that for sure.
Yeah, this is like all still kind of new, I think, to college sports, getting used to. I mean, Josie
Yeah.
St. Martin, Kate Kosova, Krista Parkinen, all of them were on different teams last year that went a little further in the NCAA tournament and such. So
Hmm.
you spent five years at Cornell before transferring to UMD for graduate school. Um,
Hmm.
you have what's essentially a sixth year here because the Ivy League, they canceled your first season in 2020-21. You missed almost all of 22-23 with that broken leg. You
Yep.
graduated from Cornell a year ago, here at UMD now working on an MBA. What has this year, this extra year, this bonus year that you were granted of college life and being a student athlete, what's that been like?
It has um it has been incredibly, I guess, eye-opening and just like it's so strange to be on a team for so long, especially in college hockey. It like makes you realize just how unique and different every team really is, every culture, every program. And like for better or for worse, so I've only been a part of these two, but I don't know if I won the lottery or what, if I struck gold that I ended up in two places that um gave me so much and that I've been so happy with. I feel like that doesn't happen to many people. It also doesn't happen to many people that you transfer out of a place because you have to, not because you want to, and then end up somewhere else where you're extremely happy as well. And I just don't know how it worked out so well for me. It really did though, and it's taught me just like everything is upside down. It's different. Obviously, like from little things like team structure, practice time during the day, travel schedule. Like for me, like playing in the ECAC for 4 years, like you play two teams every weekend and you travel in between games and that's it. And you only play each team once away and once at home. You don't have a 4 game total series against teams throughout the year. And it's completely different. The campus setup is different. Obviously our conference is completely different. The rules for me at Cornell for that amount of time, we couldn't even practice until first day of classes. There was no practicing with coaches before then, the limited hours and so forth. And here it's a shakeup in terms of being able to, I guess, have a little more free reign with that. Like I definitely feel like, especially being a grad student, like my classes are in the evening 3 nights a week, and um, I have my days to be a hockey player. And it's not about as much of trying to like figure out exactly how I'll get my undergrad classes in and then from the rink and about like I feel like I have a lot of freedom and it's been cool to be here as an older player too, and getting to see freshmen come in and realize like, wow, like you are about to start your 4 years in college hockey in the NCAA with a great program. So it's exciting in itself, but just to see like it's like looking in a mirror, and I'm like, wow, that was me, whatever years, what feels like forever ago, and it's really rewarding. I would say it's really cool to. I'm glad I got to try something new.
You touched on a few of it there, and the way I was originally going to ask this was like, what's the difference between the ECAC and the WCHA? But I'm wondering maybe more, what's the different? You highlighted some of them already. What are the major differences of going from playing hockey at an Ivy League school to a public WCHA school?
Yeah, I guess I would say like for here I can't speak to the undergrad portion, I guess. Like you'd have to, like I can't make any assumptions on what that looks like. I know the
Oh,
girls are
I'm
busy
sure
doing
the undergrad program at UMD is just as rigorous as the Ivy Leagues.
well.
As they like to
I
say here, the Harvard of the Midwest.
don't, well, I know that the girls are busy during the day with classes and whatnot, and mine is at night, which is obviously different. But I think something is just that, like at Cornell, I was pretty packed during the day. Like we didn't really, we didn't have the opportunity to practice or train during the day at all. That was reserved for school, and we had our evenings to practice, and that was kind of it. So I would have my like full day classes of from whatever 8 to 4 o'clock or 9 to 4 o'clock, and then head to the rink and spend my last 4 hours of the day until I went home and went to bed. So it was pretty packed days. Like I felt like here now, which makes sense that I'm in a different program too. It's not an undergraduate degree, but I have more time to really focus on what I'm going to do for the day at the rink, and then what I would do, at school at night. But like I said, I think here the girls are pretty busy with their undergrad degrees like during the day. So it's not, I can't say like school. Everyone has the same hours of school in a day. And I'm sure it's not night and day difference. Like it's, every place is different. And regardless of whether you compare Cornell to here or Wisconsin to whatever, Minnesota State, like it's the same, I would say. Like I feel like it's not a crazy difference.
How is you mentioned the ECAC in part because they do play fewer games at the Ivy League schools. The scheduling is different, and I always notice that too when I go to like compare. For instance, I'm doing the research on Yale, and I'm looking for common opponents, and it's like, oh, Yale's only playing teams once or twice a year. How big of a difference does that make these 4 game series that the WCHA has compared to maybe what teams are doing out east?
You know what? I think one thing that I've personally noticed a lot is that so you go into your game here, like for me now, you game one, and then you both adjust, and then it's back to it game two. And that's a big difference for me because in the past, like I would play Princeton in September or October, and then I'd play them again in February, and that's a different team. And you don't have the 2 games, 1 game adjust, and then okay, we're going to go there for 2 games in a month or whatever it may be. And that's I think there's a lot of like you're playing like a different team in my mind when from what I was used to is like we would play, maybe you'd smoke a team at the start of the year, um, and then you don't play them like not the next day, not the next, you play them 2 months later after the season's gone on, and it's a different team. You're both different teams. So I'd say that that's a wrench and that's different. It was an adjustment, but I also think that you kind of like you get used to these teams, like you get really used to these teams, and you almost have this relationship with these teams, like you know each other pretty well. And like by the end of the season, when we're getting into what we are now, we're going to play Ohio for the 5th time this year. And like of course there's adjustments, but like you know exactly what you're getting into. And I think that that's unique, at least different for me. And then again, another huge thing that I like absolutely love about the WCHA is not traveling in between games on the road, not packing up at in Harvard and driving 3 hours to Dartmouth at 10 o'clock at night. That's really nice to not have to do that. But yeah, I'd say that's like a big difference. And then obviously playing more games. Like here I get to play more games than I ever had in the past, starting later and not just not having time to fill those gaps. So yeah.
So we've heard like for in the West, our thought is, oh, it's way easier to travel in the East because you can just bus everywhere. But you guys do a lot more busing. Is from your perception, is travel a little easier in the WCHA? It's a lot more stretched out. You got to fly to like Ohio State and stuff like that. But like you said, you get to NHL guys will get on the college writers like Brad Schlossman and Grand Forks and I, because we get to actually like go somewhere and spend 2 to 3 nights, whereas they go to a game, they're there for a night, hop on a plane, next city, or
Mhm.
driving to the next city. You kind of like that aspect of the WCHA of actually going somewhere for a weekend and staying there. I've made the drive between Dartmouth and Boston. That's
Yeah.
in the middle of the night. It's not fun.
Yeah. No, and obviously we're not doing the driving, you're sitting on a bus, but I think it's just it's hard to say because yeah, traveling to Ohio State, commercial is like that's kind of a pain. You drive to the cities and then, you get on what like, the whole deal. Like you're not chartering.
Flights get delayed. Is my luggage gonna get there?
Exactly. Where's the bus? Like, are we? And so that's like definitely like that's different. But again, like you do it the one time, but or for us in our case now too. But I just think like it's hard to compare, say one's harder or worse or better. Like here, I would say it's great that I finish a late game and I get a good meal and I go to sleep. And that's that. I don't toss and turn on a bus for 3 hours and then get to my destination at midnight. And to be fair, that's not every road trip. Like some are closer together. There's like St. Lawrence Clarkson. It's you stay at the same hotel. They're basically in the same city. But then there's other ones where it's like maybe an hour or so. It's just the whole, I'm getting on a bus, unpacking at a new rink tonight, going to the hotel. Like you have to do it's a production. Whereas here it's a lot of busing as well. It's just, it's hard to say one's harder or worse or better. It's just different.
Yeah, you were at Cornell, which is in the far flungs of the ECAC. I'm sure the Boston schools think you guys are the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
They compare going to Ithaca like the WCHA going to Ohio probably.
Mhm.
Actually, I've literally heard Hockey East people complain about going up to Maine or Vermont
Yeah.
or New Hampshire, all the way up there.
Mhm.
How could you drive that far? Is what they'll
Yeah.
they'll they'll tell us over here. They think it's crazy if you drive any further than 2 hours. Um,
Yeah.
what are some stereotypes that you guys had out east of the WCHA that actually are true? Give us some
Oh,
stereotypes about out here.
oh man, that's a tough one
Did you
because
have any stereotypes out
yeah,
there?
we
Okay.
sure did. But I think here's what I'll tell you from someone that's played in both conferences. And I've played in both conferences at different times. I will also say that, like the past, however many national championships have come out of the WCHA. That's true. But there was a long time where there was Clarkson coming out with the like, so the
We joked for a
stereotype,
while Clarkson should be brought into the WCHA. If you win a national title, then you get
yeah.
WCHA membership. So
And I'm not going to try and argue with that fact. And obviously, I'm in this conference, and I'll have to say, like, um, the stereotype would be that the ECAC thinks that they're the best conference and or the most competitive conference with each other because anyone can win on any given night. But the WCHA also has top national
yes,
like it's
I've heard the WCHA is top heavy.
WCHA is the best conference, or the ECAC is the most competitive, or whatever you want to say. I've heard both. I'm not going to associate with either. I'm all I can say is playing in both conferences, different years, so I can't say that this is it then and now and whatever. But you can't argue with the fact that you're playing one and two in the country 4 times each. That's a hard schedule. And it's not, I'm not saying this is what it is historically all the time. Like in the past few years, yes, it has been. And this year it is. Like you're playing the number one and number two ranked NPI ranked teams. Like that's not really I I don't know if someone will take this the wrong way, but there's no argument there. Like you're playing one and two 4 times each. That might, and then number three, sorry, I didn't even like one, two, and three 4 times each. And that
Yeah,
makes
Minnesota's bounced between
yeah.
three and I think that they're four going into they
Yes.
just hung on to
Yeah.
four going into the NCAA tournament. Though I'm
Right.
very curious if we get
Yeah.
Minnesota versus Penn State to see what that would look like. But
Yeah.
we'll
So
see.
that's what I mean is so yeah, I would say like the WCHA is the most competitive conference right now. I don't know how you can dispute that. I am not saying it's always that way or will always be that way because obviously it's just depends on the year. But if you look at the rankings, that's the difference. And I guess that's a stereotype is that people in the WCHA think that they're in the best conference, and the WCHA thinks that it's the best conference. And I think both of those things are true right now, at least. So, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm not saying the ECAC is not a good conference. Like, I played in that league for got 3 seasons there, and we played against the teams that, like, Clarkson, that went to a Frozen Four, Yale went to the Frozen Four my sophomore year. Like, there have been, I'm not saying there aren't, it's just currently the top 3-4 teams are majority is based here. So that's all I would, without ruffling any feathers. And I'm not trying to talk negatively about either one, because that's just, I don't know. That's just, I mean, that's hockey right now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're both good leagues. I think they're both at the top of college hockey right now. It's interesting to see where the ECAC teams are in the tournament this year. And we'll see if they can do some damage when they go to like Penn State and such. So, Ashley, take us through kind of your path to college hockey. You grew up in Wilcox, which is right by Regina, Saskatchewan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Take us through that path, because you also spent some time with Mary Kate O'Brien at Bishop Kearney in New York. What's really interesting is I've seen your name pop up on both. You've played for the Canadian U18 team, and you've been part of USA Hockey U18 camps. Take us through your path and
yeah.
such.
So, yes, I was born in Alberta, grew up right near Banff. My grandpa, my dad, they ran a hockey school there for years and years. And then when I was a little older, about 10 or 11 years old, we moved to Saskatchewan, and my dad worked at Notre Dame College, the boarding school there, and coached, worked with the hockey teams there. And then as I got into high school, I ended up playing in a team for a team. I billeted. It was a couple hours away, but that was when I started, when it was my sophomore year of high school, when I was first eligible for those U18 camps. And I think my dad, like, I'm a dual citizen, so I think my dad was just like looking online, and there was like the camp in Grand Forks or whatever, and that would be like my closest center if I wanted to go to this USA hockey camp. And they're like, oh, it's for USA hockey. It's kids that are US citizens, basically. And he inquired and was like, we don't live there. Like, we don't have, they're like, that's fine. Her closest center is North Dakota, have her come. And so I did. And it went well. And I ended up I didn't know this process at all. It was very unfamiliar to me, but they were like, got an invite to my first year to the Herb Brooks Center, whatever the St. Cloud camp was, did that. And then the next year I got an invite to their select camp, which is the main, like, the 66 players for the U18 tryouts or whatever. And still wasn't really familiar with what that was, but I went through the process, ended up getting the invite to Lake Placid, played in those games. And then eventually it was that year that I got a call that fall before Worlds in Japan that I'd made the U18 team. And I was ecstatic, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, I didn't get the invite from Canada that year, but I ended up making the US roster. And I mean, who's going to turn that down? And I'm 16 years old, and I'm pumped, and it's the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. And then they call me back after they send me my ticket. I've got everything ready to go to Japan, and they're like, hey, we're so sorry. Like, the IHF didn't clear you to play with us. Like, you're ineligible because you've never played minor hockey in the US. Everything else was, I met the requirements, but you have to play, if you're for the women's side, you have to play 1 season in the US for minor hockey before you can be eligible for their national team, which, I mean, clearly I didn't know that. So I didn't go. I didn't get to go. But that following year, I went to BK. So that would have kind of fulfilled that requirement. But I got the invite from Hockey Canada and had a good relationship with one of the people working there at the time. I didn't know her very well, and she came and spoke to me about kind of the whole situation that went down, and was like, we would love to have you. Like, this wasn't that we didn't want you. Like, we'd love to have you. So I went to that camp and ended up making that team that went to Slovakia that year. And then obviously I've been with Hockey Canada ever since, and I wouldn't change a thing. Like, it was a great experience. Like, that's a really weird path for someone to take, to end up on both sides, but I think that everything does happen for a reason. And, when you're 16, you're excited about making one of those teams. You're on a national roster, and it's the coolest thing ever. And now that I'm older and realized, like, I am born and raised in Canada, I'm obviously a US citizen, but like, I'm Canuck through and through. Like I want to be on Team Canada and I want to play on that. I want to go to the Olympics one day for Canada and wear that jersey. So it was an interesting path, but yes, that is how I ended up there.
So that's how you ended up in BK with Mary Kate
Yeah.
O'Brien, because you were trying to get that season in to
And
play for possibly for USA Hockey.
And for me, I didn't even realize that at the time. Like, I think it was time for me to move on from where I was and try something new. But it wasn't even that. It was also the coach at BK at the time, Brent Hill, who coached at Quinnipiac, who coaches at or coached at Quinnipiac. Um, coaches at Quinnipiac now. He's and was with Team USA in Milan. He was one of my coaches at those like under 18 camps for USA, and he was extremely helpful throughout my recruiting process just from meeting him at that one camp. Like he was a great coach, a great resource, a great person to know, and we talked about how he works at BK. He's the coach of that program, and I fully trusted him and knew that like I would love to be part of his program, and it was a great decision because that Selects Academy at BK is like unmatched, and I still think it is to this day. It's a great layout, great format, great coaches, people, and it just worked out really well that I met him like in crossing in these camps. And so that's kind of how I ended up there too. I think it was less so about the eligibility thing. Maybe my parents were thinking that just in case, but I just was happy to be at BK. And yeah, obviously, MK O'Brien ended up being my roommate that year, which is how I knew her going into this. And now we're roommates again. So
Which means you're featured in many. You get sucked into a lot of
if
TikToks.
I'm lucky enough, I'll get a feature. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna do some quick hits to close this out here. We'll start with what is your favorite Mary Kate O'Brien TikTok?
Oh, okay. This is, I mean, it's top of mind right now, but the Zamboni one is my favorite at the moment. That was really good. I was got a kick out of that.
Yeah, that was a quality one.
Uh-huh.
I don't spend as much time as well. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but yeah, everyone was like, "Didn't you see the TikTok?" When I asked
How
about
could
her
you
and the
miss it?
Zamboni, and I finally got it. We embedded it. For those of you not on TikTok, DuluthNewsTribune.com. If you go to the women's NCAA tournament story, we embedded Mary Kate O'Brien's Zamboni TikTok in there to gave her a boost to try to get her some more views on there. You wore number 8 at Cornell. You're number 23 at UMD. Does either number have a significance?
Yes, 8 has been my brother was 8, my dad was 8, or yeah, my dad was 8. He was also 23 for a little while too. So that's kind of the reason I'm those two. Also a huge fan of Alexander Ovechkin. It's my favorite player of all time. So that's kind of a double whammy on why I like 8, but 8's my number. I was 23 in high school for a year at BK just because they happened to have it free. But I it's my mom's favorite number, and it's the day she's born on, and my dad was that number for a while. So that's kind of why 23. Personally, I guess the significance isn't crazy, but yeah.
If you could go back to Ireland with the team, what's one thing you would want to do or see again, or do or see that we missed?
Okay, one thing that was amazing was the Game of Thrones studio tour. That was phenomenal. And I'm a huge, I guess, if you watch the show, which I have, and that was really cool. I would also, I don't know. I unfortunately spent a lot of time in the hotel room that trip. So if I could go back in time,
Unfortunately, you're owed another Ireland trip
yeah,
after
take more
getting
vitamin C
sick.
and avoid the flu. That's my goal. That'd be my advice to myself.
I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, but I enjoyed just watching Coach Laura Schuler geek out, just
Yeah.
hardcore geek out. Like
Hmm.
she was. We almost lost her that night in the Game of Thrones studio. We never would have got
Yeah.
out of there unless someone went in and got her.
Hmm.
The question I know everyone always has, and I asked this when I first met you during the Frozen Four last year. Give us the short explanation of your relation to Mark Messier.
Mark Messier is my dad's cousin. He's my second cousin. I don't, yeah, I mean, people I think are looking for a whole lot more. They're like, oh, is that your uncle? Is that your dad? And it's confusing because my dad's name is Marcus. He doesn't go by,
Oh,
people are like, my God. I'm like, nope, not the same person. But yeah, that's really it. Like, I'm in touch with his sister, Mary Kay. She works for Bauer, a little bit more, but he's a busy guy, and yeah, so there's not a whole lot of exciting stuff going on there, but
More valuable to have the connection in the hockey equipment industry, maybe the connection with Mark. Always good to have a connection there at Bauer.
yeah.
What do you want to do in life after your hockey career comes to an end? Are you going to be finishing your MBA in 1 year here at Duluth?
Yep, I'll be done in June.
Wow, that's impressive.
Got through it pretty quick, or tried to. That's why I couldn't make it for a podcast until now. But yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna, well, obviously, I guess not obviously, but I am like I'm going to, after I graduate, I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna enter the draft and see if I can play professionally and just keep loving and playing hockey as long as I possibly can. And then that's a great question, because I don't exactly know what I want to do, but hopefully going to school for 6 years gives you some value in the business world, even if you play hockey for a few in between then.
Yeah, hopefully you don't have to worry about that question, what to do after your, hopefully you got some time. Yeah, I think we mentioned it. We've been trying to get Ashley on this podcast all season, but we check her class schedule and it's just loaded, just absolutely loaded. Not always the case with fifth year seniors on the hockey teams, but you and Kyler Kovich, loaded schedules.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. I know your experience is different than other athletes, but what advice would you have to student athletes who are entering the transfer portal or in the process right now of thinking about whether they should hit the portal or not? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, like you said, it's different. Like it's tough. I can't speak to deciding to leave somewhere. That choice was made for me, thank God. But
yeah, you and Kyler subject to the Ivy League rules of can't play grad school there.
Yeah. But just that same thing as when you go into this process as a freshman and you pick a place, like you got to trust your gut. You'll know, like that's what I was told before too. Like you'll know, like when you meet people and talk to the players, like you just get that feeling and you'll know, and just go into it with an open mind, and there's no comparison. You can't do that. They're different places. You take it for what it's worth, and you're going to have a great time if you can just let yourself see that, there's no reason to compare. You're going to get a totally new experience, and that's exactly what you should want. So I think just be excited about it and try to learn, try to enjoy it, and let yourself try something new.
All right. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
You can find more episodes of the Bulldog Insider Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, subscribe, and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/Bulldog Insider. Subscribe to gain access to all of our coverage all season long. And as I said, we're going to try and get in 2 episodes this week. Graydon Seatman from the men's team also scheduled to record an episode with us prior to the Bulldogs NCHC semifinal game at North Dakota, so watch for that. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week.